Hello, my name is Candace Johnson, and I am a student at Liberty University. I'm going to be presenting my project on interpersonal communication for the course HSCO 508. During my presentation, I will be sharing my own personal blends, barriers, and my plan of action to improve my skills in communication. Next slide. What I will be discussing is what is communication, overarching goals, enlarging a conversation, my background and behavior blend, interpersonal communication, and barriers and ways to overcome them, noise pollution, and my plan of action. Next slide. So what is interpersonal communication? I would like to start by talking about communication. Communication is basically listening, and listening is one of the most important aspects of exchange because it is a channel often used for learning. According to Stewart, communication is the continuous, complex, collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal. Next slide. So what are the types of communication? There are two types of communication. You have verbal and nonverbal. When using verbal communication, you can express with words, thoughts, and rules of grammar. Nonverbal communication is using our body language, facial expressions, and gestures. Next slide. What is interpersonal communication? According to Stewart, interpersonal communication is a type or kind of communication that happens when people involve talk and listen in ways to maximize the presence of the personal. So that's basically, you have the speaker and you have the talker exchanging information, and one is letting the other one speak, so their ideas can be broadened. Next slide. Overarching goals. So my overarching goals is to become a better listener instead of trying to take the lead in everything. I want to give the speaker a chance to say their ideas, put out their ideas, instead of me trying to interject and put my own ideas into their conversation. To communicate with others in a way that are honest with their feelings. Also, I want to pay attention to the conversation and not allow myself to be distracted. My biggest distraction is my cell phone. I never put my cell phone on silent. When I'm having a conversation, if my cell phone rings, I will actually stop the conversation and answer my cell phone. So that's one of my biggest distractions, and I want to actually make it better and make it a goal not to do that. Also, to refrain from judging during conversation and put myself in their shoes. That's when I need to be more empathetic on the speaker's ideas and their thoughts. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation. We must understand our communication skills and use those skills to enhance conversation. Keeping the conversation going by taking turns. That's when you can use the TLC cards. You have the speaker and the listener, and then they can swap the cards, and then the other person will be the listener, and then the other person will be the speaker. That allows both parties to learn and grow and, get more and more information. Next slide. Enlarging my conversation, who I am. At this moment, I'm at a level 3 listener, but I'm working towards being a level 1 listener. The ways I can improve the listening is listening more diligently, working on being less impatient, not jumping to conclusions, and being patient when formulating ideas. Next slide. Okay, a lot of people don't understand is that a background has a lot to deal with how you communicate with others. My background, I am the youngest of 6 siblings. My parents divorced when I was the age of 12. The first sibling to get my college degree. I'm an Army veteran, so that's where a lot of me being in leadership roles or me trying to take charge. I'm active and task-oriented. I often handle pressure well, and I enjoy getting to know people around the world. Next slide. My background, the pros and cons. I'm trustworthy. I'm a thinker. I like to think at all times. Interacting with others, loyal. Cons, sometimes I may try to be dominant, sometimes I'm outspoken or opinionated, and I like to be straightforward. I like to get to the point. Next slide. Behavior blend, described in the Carbonell book, How to Solve the People Puzzle, is describing a dispersonality model. It makes up an individual pattern of behavior. The behavior blend is separated in two different perspectives. What is expected of me and who I am as a person. Next slide. The DISC personality profile is DISC. The D as active, task-oriented, A, active, people-oriented, S, passive, people-oriented, and C, passive, task-oriented. The class was instructed to do a DISC assessment online. I scored 82 out of 100. So after taking the assessment, I realized that it was a wake-up call for how I interact with others. Next slide. My expected blend is DC, influencing, dominating, and taking charge. Who I really am is DIC, task-oriented, outspoken, loyal, and kind. Positive, ability to solve problems, being loyal, loving, and encouraging. Negative is judgmental at times, outspoken, opinionated, and straightforward. Next slide. Barriers. So there are different barriers in communication. During my positive and negative conversations, there are barriers that may exist during communication. Some of the examples of barriers that I must overcome is biased listening, interrupting, and internal distractions. Next slide. The barrier solutions. I will listen to the speaker without judging. I would use the tongue biting method to allow the speaker to speak freely until it's my turn, and I will also concentrate on the speaker and not my own personal issues. Next slide. Noise pollution. Factors that influence us to be distracted, listening effective, level 1. The two types of noise pollution is internal noise and external noise. Internal pollution is things people do to have internal barriers to prevent people from listening effectively. So having our personal ideas and personal opinions. So that is a barrier that is internal. The problems is selective listening, biased listening, emotional listening. Solutions: process information better, try not to judge others, don't let the emotions get ahead of you, and clarify the information. Next slide. Internal noise pollution. These are the outside or inside noise barriers to prevent people from listening effectively. The problems is mannerisms and talking, loud noises and traffic, room temperature, and also interruptions. Solutions: ask for clarity, find a quiet place to talk, adjust the room temperature, or put the phone on silent. Next slide. My plan or action. My goal is to become a level 1 listener. I want to implement the Peterson Talk listening card method. It will help both the speaker and the listener to communicate effectively. I want to practice empathetic listening and less ritual listening, be less critical and judgmental, and I also want to be more aware of my behavior blend and how it affects my listening skills. During this course, I actually learned a lot about myself and how I communicate with others. And in the future, I want my communication skills to improve from a level 3 to a level 1. So this concludes my interpersonal communication project for HSCO 508. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed. God bless and have a nice day.